Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking out time and joining me to today's session. My name is Roshan, and I'll be presenting the session 5 in our Windows Virtual Desktop webinar series. Let me put it to full scale. In today's session, we will be talking about the spring release that Microsoft brought in April 2020. Microsoft brought several changes in April 2020 to a lot of features or a lot of services in Windows in Azure, and Windows Virtual Desktop also received many upgrades in the way we can create and monitor Windows Virtual Desktop components. So in today's session, we'll be looking at what are the latest changes and how we can use the features that were introduced in the spring release to our benefit and create a new Windows Virtual Desktop infrastructure. As I said earlier, this is part of a webinar series. We have already delivered 4 sessions. In case you have not attended those sessions, here are the links for those sessions. These are recorded sessions, and you can go through these recordings. In today's session, I'll not be going into details of or I'll not be going into the basics of Windows Virtual Desktop. I'll be more talking about the new features that were introduced in spring release. I would strongly recommend, if you're watching this video, then go through these webinar series one after the other, right from the implementation of WVD to application publishing, Nerdio introduction, and then look at the spring release that is today's session. So the updates to the spring release in the previous release, or now they call it as fall release, we could not add groups to be assigned to the host pools, right? So while you're creating the Windows Virtual Desktop, you had to add individual users separately. Now we have the option to add either users or groups. We never really had an admin control or an admin access to a Windows Virtual Desktop. I'm sorry, not admin access, but a control panel to a Windows Virtual Desktop. We always had to use the web management UI, which was made available from Microsoft, but now there is a management portal available within the Azure portal itself, using which we can go ahead and create, monitor, add users, look at application pools, add applications. So a lot of things can be now done using user interface, which earlier we would have to use PowerShell commands to do it. Even in terms of PowerShell, now PowerShell is integrated with the native AZ commands, so you don't need to use a separate PowerShell module for Windows Virtual Desktop. The standard module of Azure CLI can now be used with Windows Virtual Desktop. Better monitoring options are also available. It has better integration with Azure Monitor or Log Analytics now with Spring Release. Service metadata, earlier it was only US. Now you get a little flexibility of choosing your location in terms of where your metadata can be stored. And with the Spring Release, there's no need to provide a consent for you to start using Windows Virtual Desktop in a subscription. So we'll go through most of these in our demo, but do remember that this particular feature is currently in public preview. So I would not recommend you to start using these feature set to deploy production Windows Virtual Desktop infrastructure. It's good to play around, it's good to learn. I would recommend you to wait till Microsoft makes it generally available, and then you can definitely go ahead and start implementing your customers' infrastructure, start using it for your production workloads. In terms of the components, there are certain changes. Earlier, we had to create a tenant, and then we had to create host pools and application groups, and then session host and various other components. Now, we don't need to create tenants. We actually create something called as workgroup. Workspace, I'm sorry, not workgroup, workspace. Workspace is a logical grouping of host pools and application group, right? So earlier, if you remember, within a single host pool, you could not have uh, both desktop and application publishing. But now within a single work group, you can have desktop and application publishing made available. So there's a slight change in the terminology. So first you create a work group within which you can add host pools and application groups. Host pools will definitely have session hosts and can have multiple session hosts under them. And application groups can have desktop application or um, application or remote application publishing groups within them. So a slight change in the way the components are structured now. And during the demo, you'll see more about these various components. So the requirements are very similar to what we had for deploying Windows Virtual Desktop with Azure Active Directory or a Windows-based Active Directory. So that still remains. You still need an account, which is a global admin, contributor permissions on subscription. And of course, once you use this, you need to use the account that also has permissions to join machines to the domain. So if you're using Azure domain services, then the account should be part of AAD DC administrator group. If it is part of the normal Active Directory, then a domain admin should be sufficient. So this is my lab setup, a very simple, straightforward. I have a virtual machine acting as a Active Directory. This Active Directory is syncing with my Azure AD using Azure AD Connect. And within the same network, I will be going ahead and creating the session host, the host pools, so that it's able to communicate with my Active Directory and create the Windows Virtual Desktop infrastructure. So let's jump on to the demo and let's create Windows Virtual Desktop using the new Spring release. So now once you jump on to your Azure portal, you'll see a new feature or a service available called as Windows Virtual Desktop. If you even search for Windows Virtual Desktop, you will see this particular icon now available, or a particular service that's available. And as you can see, we have a lot of options now to go ahead and create components of Windows Virtual Desktop from Azure portal itself. You don't need to provide any consent. You don't need to put in your Active Directory ID and give a consent for the server app and client app. You can straight go ahead and create a host pool. So let's go ahead and click on create a host pool. We'll use one of the resource groups that I already have. We'll give it a name saying WVD V2. Sorry, V2 demo. The location, so this is the metadata location. Earlier, you could just choose US. Now you can definitely choose various regions within US. Of course, as the time goes on, Microsoft will be introducing other locations outside US to store your service metadata. Now, do remember, service metadata does not store any user information. It is just information regarding whether the subscription has WVD service being used and certain details in terms of about the overall WVD architecture components. Next, we select host type, so pooled or personal. So for this particular demo, we'll use pooled. And here, as you can see, there are many more options are now available. So maximum session limit. So I can say 10, and do I want breadth or depth approach for load balancing? So for this, I'll choose depth first because I want to fill up one server and then send my user request to the other server. If you're not really sure of which load balancing option to choose or what these load balancing options are, I would recommend you to go through the session on application publishing and load balancing options, which is the third session in this webinar series, where we talk in more detail about what are the load balancing options, how do they work, and a detailed demo regarding both the breadth first and the depth first approach. Click next, add virtual machines. I'll say, of course, so these are the session hosts. Resource group, I'll choose the virtual machine location. So as you can see, I can choose the virtual machine location closest to my location. Select Australia. In my scenario, I'll choose Southeast Asia. I'll choose the virtual machine size. I think D2S V3 is good enough. I'll choose the number of virtual machines as 2, so that I can do auto scaling and load balancing between them. I'll give it a name saying Windows 10 pooled desktop. Okay, so it should be most, so Windows 10 desktop. Okay. So I'll choose an image from the gallery. You can also upload your own image if you have created the golden image. And here I'll select the Windows 10 Enterprise with Office Pro Plus. I'll choose the standard SSD. If you would like to use premium, you can definitely use premium as well. For the sake of demo, I'll choose standard. The network. Now here I'm choosing a network within which I have my Active Directory. Right, so this is the network within which I have my Active Directory running. It's a typical Windows-based Active Directory. It's not Azure Active Directory that I'm using in this demo. Public IP, I'll say no. Inbound, by default, I leave it to no. And here I specify the account which has global admin and which also is the contributor on this particular subscription. Okay. So next, once I've gone through the first 2 blades, and the third blade, I can select the workspace. So here I can say create a new one, and I'll say WVD V2 demo. Okay. So I'll skip this tags section for the demo. I'll review, and then let's go ahead and create this. Okay, so the validation is passed, so I'll click on create. Now this definitely takes roughly about 10 minutes to get created. So what I'll do is I'll jump on to one of the Windows Virtual Desktop tenants, which I've already created. So I'll go back to the workspace, which I've already created, so that we can look at it. So the workspace I've created is WVD V2 Pool 1. And under this, if I go to application group, you will see that I have 2 application groups which I've created. Their metadata is stored in West US. And it's associated, the applications, the users, all the details are available here, right? Now, if I go to the default desktop group, I can also see which users are assigned to this particular group, right? If I go back to my Windows Virtual Desktop and post pools, so this is the new one that's still getting created, the depth first. So let me go to the Windows 10 pooled. And here you can see I have 2 session hosts, right? I can look at the session host, which of them are running. These are the 2 session hosts that I have running in Southeast Asia. Are there any active sessions? So all those information are now readily available. I can even add additional session hosts right from here. So all I need to do is create a registry key and then add it to the new virtual machine by adding an agent to it. So all those features and options are now available right from the management portal itself. If I go to the application groups, you'll see 2 application groups. One is the desktop and one is the remote app. So the desktop is the one that gets created by default when you go ahead and create a VDI infrastructure. Remote app, you can always go ahead and say add here and go ahead and create a remote app. I give it a name. So that's what I've done. I've given it a name of Office Apps. And within this, I can go ahead and publish various applications. So if I again click on applications here, so I've currently gone ahead and published Excel, OneDrive, Task Manager, and Word. I can go ahead and add other applications from my start menu, or if I know the file location or the file path, I can go ahead and do that. So this basically pulls from the backend image that I have. Any applications which are installed and are available in the start menu will be shown here, and I can go ahead and publish these right from here as well. Again, if I look at the assignments, it will show which user has been assigned to this particular Office apps group, right? So right now, only Kohli has been assigned to this particular app group. Again, you can add users from here. So again, the users have to be part of your Active Directory. So if I search for Rohit, I should have a user. Yep, I click select, and now this user gets access to this particular Office apps group. So he is only having access to Office apps, and he would not have access to the VDI or the desktop. Because if I go to my desktops and look at assignments, Dhoni and Virat has access. So Dhoni has access only to the desktop, Virat has access to both desktop and apps, and Rohit Sharma has only access to the apps. If I look at the workspace, again, the first one is the one that we just started during the session. The second one is what I had already created. And under this, as you can see, I can see the app groups, and again, desktop or the Office apps, and then I can see various other options under this as well. The last option under Office, under Windows Virtual Desktop, is the users. So here I can search for users and see what kind of access they have. Right, if I click on this, I can see the assignment. He has access to a particular application group. Is his session active? If it is active, I can log off, I can disconnect, I can even send a message to the user. In case I need to restart the machine, I can send a message to the user from here as well. Another interesting option which I wanted to quickly show you is the IDP options as well. So let me go back to my session host here. And if I select on any of the session hosts, so for the IDP, I'm sorry, not on the host pool itself. If I go to the properties, so here I have the option to even enable and disable various RDS settings, IDP settings. Right? So for example, printers, smart cards, audio, video, I'm sorry, just audio, and disk drive. So all these options are available. I can even turn on or turn off the full screen mode. So this becomes very handy when it comes to deploying and controlling the various options that are available from Windows Virtual Desktop. So now let's log in as one of the user and see the experience. So let me log in as Kohli so that we can see both the desktops and the remote application. So Kohli has access to some of the WVD which were created previously. So you'll definitely see various host pools. Yeah, so these two are the ones which are using the older or before the spring release. So let me just subscribe one more time so that I can see the ones that are available with the spring release. Okay. So as you can see, I have all the various applications and the session host, right? Now in the background, we can go ahead and configure FS logic so that all the data gets go ahead and store on the file server. If you're using Azure Active Directory domain services, you can go ahead and configure it to use Azure file storage, with Azure with Active Directory running on a virtual machine. Can you use Azure file storage? This is a question that I keep getting from partners. As of today, you can do it, but that feature is also still in preview. It should be available very soon, or it should be made generally available very soon. And once it is made, you can use that in production as well. So here, like always, if I double click, I'll be asked for authentication, and then the Windows 10 multi-session desktop will open up. Okay, so the user is able to log in, and it's the Windows 10 desktop that he's able to access. So as you saw with the spring release, now it's become much more easier, much more quicker in order to go ahead and deploy a Windows virtual desktop infrastructure. I'd definitely encourage you to go ahead and try these options. As I said, hopefully this feature, these updates will become generally available in the next couple of months. But till then, try, test, learn, and as soon as it is generally available, you can start rolling it out as a production environment to your customers. Let me go back to my slides. We are still running a $1,000 promotion for Windows Virtual Desktop. So if you have any customers who are interested in Windows Virtual Desktop and you need assistance, we can deploy the end-to-end Windows Virtual Desktop for 25 users or less, if required, with auto scaling option as well. Now, when we deploy, so far we have been using the fall release, not the spring release, the fall release, because it is supported by Microsoft in case we face any issues. Spring release is currently in preview, so I'm not going ahead and deploying currently for production environments, but for POC, you can definitely go ahead and use the spring release. If you have any questions regarding Windows Virtual Desktop, or you need any pricing or quotation help, do get in touch with our cloud business development managers. We have 4 of them across Australia with respect to regions. So I'd definitely encourage you to get in touch with them, and you can get all the information about the POC funding and any assistance that you require in order to help your customers move their RDS infrastructure to Windows Virtual Desktop. Well, that's it from me. So thank you very much for going through this recording with me. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is displayed on the slide. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.